Who is Zoom user? Okay, doesn't matter. So, am I audible clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So there's no real need to read the previous paragraph. It's just tells about his crisis and all, and no, it basically ends with I will not fight. Nayotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim babuvaha. I will not fight. Saying thus, he became quiet, and that one comes in the second chapter, just before Krishna's discourse begins. Uh, we'll begin from this paragraph. The character of this inner crisis is therefore. Today there is some problem with incarnate word, so we are using different website. Who would like to read? Who would like to begin reading?
I can read.
Please.
The character of this inner crisis is therefore not the questioning of the thinker. It is not a recoil from the appearances of life and a turning of the eye inward in search of the truth of things, the real meaning of existence, and a solution or an escape from the dark riddle of the world. It is the sensational, emotional, and moral revolt of the man hitherto satisfied with action and its current standards, who finds himself cast by them into a hideous chaos where they are in violent conflict with each other and with themselves, and there is no moral standing ground left, nothing to lay hold of and walk by, no dharma. That for the soul of action in the mental being is the worst possible crisis, failure, and overthrow. The revolt itself is the most elemental and simple possible. Sensationally, the elemental feeling of horror, pity, and disgust. Vitally, the loss of attraction and faith in the recognized and familiar objects of yeah, action and aims of life. Emotionally, the recoil of the ordinary feelings of social man, affection, reverence, desire of a common happiness and satisfaction, from a stern duty outraging them all, morally, the elementary sense of sin and hell and rejection of blood-stained enjoyments, practically, the sense that the standards of action have led to a result which destroys the practical aims of action. But the whole upshot is that all embracing inner bankruptcy which Arjuna expresses when he says that his whole conscious being, not the thought alone, but heart and vital desires and all, are utterly bewildered and can find nowhere the dharma, nowhere any valid law of action. For this alone he takes refuge as a disciple with Krishna. Give me, he practically asks, that which I have lost, a true law, a clear rule of action, a path by which I can again confidently walk. He does not ask for the secret of life or of the world, the meaning and purpose of it all, but for a dharma.
Right. Thank you. I'm just seeing who all has joined.
Yeah,
Francesca has joined.
yeah,
Yogesh has joined. Dhaval.
yeah. Actually, I am through Parjane's
Acha.
iPad, so
Okay.
I'm not carrying my laptop. I'm
No
outside.
problem. No problem.
So
No
I just
problem.
made sure I wanted to join. So
Yeah,
I
yeah. Thank.
somebody
Yeah,
else's
yeah.
machine. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, pretty much everybody who confirmed that they are joining have joined. Right. So, unlike last time, we have not reread the previous paragraph because there was not felt the need to do it. We have begun with the next one, but we'll just, इसमें भी बहुत ज़्यादा there is not much content as far as profundity and all that is concerned, but we'll just go through it once more, not to make sure as much as we can, not to lose any fine point. All right. So the character of this inner crisis is therefore not the questioning of the thinker. Again, he's repeating the same point that Arjuna is not a man of thought. He's a man of action. He's not the contemplative, or the meditative man or the sage type of personality. He is the man of action, the fighter, the doer, and all that, right? It is not a recoil from the appearances of life and a turning of the eye inward in search of the truth of things, the real meaning of existence, and a solution or an escape from the dark riddle of the world. So his Vairagya, if you may call it, is not coming from these sattvic reasons, if you would. These are the right reasons for which lead to this kind of a thinking or a seeking. Recoil from the appearances of life and a turning of the eye inward in search of the truth of things. When we are disappointed by something and then we're like, what is the truth of life? What is the truth of things? That sort of thing. The real meaning of existence. This is superior. When purely our buddhi is stimulated and we start thinking for the real meaning of existence. इसके पीछे है क्या? What is this truly? What is this truly? Right? And a solution or an escape from the dark riddle of the world. Clear enough? इसमें कुछ ज़्यादा वो नहीं है. It is the sensational, emotional, and moral revolt of the man, hitherto satisfied with action. Up to now, he has had no problems with acting in this way, right? Like I said last time, that it was the recognized aim of the Kshatriya in those days. Any Kshatriya worth his salt, worth his, mother's milk, would want to expand his territory and create an empire. Of course, not just with the intention of creating an empire. That would be only serving Artha and Kama that way. But ultimately, for propagating that which that clan or kingdom felt was the highest ideal of Dharma, right? This thing is beautifully covered in detail by Sri Aurobindo in his book, The Ideal of Human Unity, wherein he tells basically the divine rationale behind the creating of empires. Divine rationale, I'm saying. Okay, so there is this unity which happens in humanity through the inner process, wherein we grow inwardly and we recognize the oneself in things more and more, and that is the true unity, right? But you cannot wait for, because that takes time. Bahu nam janmanam ante jnanavam, etc. All that. So even through the outer means, humanity is unified. It's an external way, and through that union, a higher dharma is realized in the overall collective, right? For example, very simple example, then because this is not the main point of the text here, the English language, okay? So the result of the British Empire has been that more than 50% of the world can understand one language, and it is a very powerful way of unifying the world. While, ultimately Sri Aurobindo is divine, so if the divine has anything, does anything, there must be a reason behind it. What is the reason he's behind choosing English as the language of his works? So, I mean, that seems to me to be the chief reason. Of course, besides the fact that he was most proficient in English, but it is the language which is going to be the global language and the common language of entire humanity for a long time to come, right? So this is the rationale behind the Kshatriya idea of creating an empire, Samraj, all that. So, yeah. Where is it? It is this sensational, emotional, and moral revolt of the man, hitherto satisfied with action and its current standards, who finds himself, what is the standard for, in this case, the standard of the Kshatriya, the moral and chivalrous code, basically. What he should do, what is the Kshatra Dharma, and all that. I had quoted last time one verse from the 18th chapter regarding the Kshatriya Dharma. So, Shauryam Tejo, Dhritir Dakshyam, Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam, Danam Ishvara Bhavascha, Kshatram Karma, Svabhavajam. So, he's embodying all these things in himself, right? But what has happened? And its current standard, who finds himself cast by them into a hideous chaos. Hideous is a very strong word. Something extremely ugly, ghastly. Ghastly is a very good synonym, one word synonym. Something hideous, absolutely. You can't even imagine that I have to do such a thing. The magnitude of it is difficult to imagine. Into a hideous chaos where they are in violent conflict with each other. The current standards that he knows it, they are contemporary at that time, and with themselves, and there is no moral standing ground left. Like Dhaval Bhai said last time, that the whole summary of this can be what so far is that his morality has failed him. Now the moral standards that he knows or he is accustomed to, now they are no longer sufficient for him to do what he's called upon to do, right? And where I said that, Mother says in the agenda regarding spirituality and morality, that morality can be given up for something higher than morality, not for something lower than morality. So if in the name of spirituality you are compromising your moral values, I mean, some contemplation and correction needs to be done. Okay, that is like a very practical point because okay, I don't want to extend this all too much and ultimately confuse everybody, but we have two major avatars in India, Sri Rama and Sri Krishna. Sri Aurobindo, so many people do not know about as yet. So one is a standard of perfection and morality in that sense. And Krishna breaks all moral rules wherever necessary to you know, achieve what is necessary. So sometimes we can be in a dilemma whom to follow. It's a very real dilemma for, at least Indians. So, of course, there can be no one answer. Obey your soul, it alone has the right to govern your life. That is the ultimate rule. But to be on the safe side and not, to live in that spiritual level constantly, growing spirituality is one thing, but it can create actually more damage. It is far wiser to follow the Shastra, follow books like Essays on the Gita, and whatever mental enlightenment we are giving, base our actions on that morality and mix. It's actually not just morality in Sri Aurobindo's books. That kind of, you can say, that spiritual morality which we get as a base by reading and by doing the study of such books, right? So I don't think I need to dwell on this point furthermore, right? So there is no moral standing ground left, nothing to lay hold of and walk by, no dharma. Okay. So this is again referring to the footnote which we had read last time. Dharma means literally that which one lays hold of, जिसको हम पकड़ते हैं, because it is important. That's why I'm rereading it again. This is the most succinct and appropriate definition of dharma that at least I have found in whatever I've heard or heard or read. And which holds things together. जो चीजों को पकड़ के रखता है, it is the binding force. Okay, this is the Dri Dhatu hai. We had covered it last time. The law, the norm, the rule of nature, action, and life. All right. So that for the soul of action in the mental being is the worst possible crisis, failure, and overthrow. Basically, you can say the ground has been swept from under his feet and he doesn't know what to do. The revolt itself is the most elemental and simple possible. Now he breaks it down into four. Last time when I had covered, I had said this is three, but one of those points was having two things. So he breaks it down at four levels. This is very beautifully and very systematically. Sri Aurobindo breaks down the psychology, and it on our own, if we were asked to do this, I do not know how many of us would be able to break it down like this, systematic way. Yeah.
You are Anmol ji, you are absolutely right, because ये जो 5 point नीचे है is actually the progression which I just
actually 5. I'm sorry. He's right.
5.
Not
Sorry,
4,
yeah,
5.
there are 5. There are
Fifth
5.
is the practical point.
Yeah, and these 5 are written in that order of. As I dwell more, I get to find the order also. It is actually laid in that order, and slowly it rises. And what you just mentioned, a lot. At least, again, nothing personal, but this happens. This happens. It happens in our daily life also. We become bewildered, and
Exactly.
many times, Arjuna was lucky to find solution, but at least people like us.
We are even more lucky that way. We have Essays on the Gita and we have Sri Aurobindo.
No, I understand we have, but what to do as a practical advice.
Exactly. I fully agree.
Not easy to come by. It's not easy to come.
Gita solves the problem of life. The Gita is for solving the problem of action, problem of day to day, problem of moment. And throughout history, even Gandhiji for that matter, and many great people, when they were in a crisis, they would just open the Gita at some page and find the solution to their problems.
No, I agree. See, we will open the Gita, but it's still we have to discover the how to do part. It is not like Arjuna here where he is kind of guided. That is what is missing in our life. We have to read through and all.
And the point here, no problem. And the point here that I was trying to make, that because Sri Aurobindo is able to do this so systematically, that is one of the strong rationales for taking the trouble to read his book seriously. Because what you get by reading him, so much enrichment, so much systematization in your thinking, isn't it? अपने आप से we may not be able, I'm not challenging anybody's intellectual ability or spiritual development. But on your own, it may not be, we may not be able to do it so well as Sri Aurobindo has already done it for us, right? So to make the best use of his books.
Yeah, totally agree. This kind of detailed to that crossing the T's and dotting the I's is done here, and no, in a clouded mind, it is very difficult to do such an analysis.
Exactly.
Especially in times of, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. So we move ahead. No issues, no issues. The revolt itself is the most elemental and simple possible. Sensationally, the elemental feeling of horror, pity, and disgust all at once. Horror, pity, and disgust. Vitally, second point, the loss of attraction and faith in the recognized and familiar objects of action and aims of life. Okay. In fact, Krishna will say in the 11th chapter, because he has lost the faith, Jitva Shatrun Bhungshwarajyam Samriddham. Conquer the enemies and enjoy a prosperous kingdom. He says this. Sri Aurobindo quotes this in his letters. That do you think that Krishna, if it were true that you had to only reject the money power and there was supposed to be no interest in politics or any such thing, empire building, why do you think that Krishna will say to Arjuna that enjoy a prosperous kingdom? So there is a truth in that. Of course, with the inner realization and with the inner victory, only can these outer enjoyments be enjoyed. Somebody who has nothing but he has the divine realization within him, he is the king of kings, right? But I mean, just I was reminded of this shloka, so I said it. Okay, sensationally, vitally, emotionally, the recoil of the ordinary feelings of social man, affection, reverence, desire of a common happiness and satisfaction, from a stern duty outraging them all. What is this duty which is making me go against all these emotional things, right? Now here I should take a pause and just say that in the Bengali writings, the part on the first chapter, so whatever you are feeling as a student that Sri Aurobindo is not covering in detail the first chapter, okay, that gap to a large extent is filled in that Bengali writings, Vali writings. They were in 1909 in this thing called Dharma Journal or something, and this is written in 1916. So that is why, this is obviously, I mean, this is essays on the Gita. There's no need to, So, but I will make sure to paste some of the relevant passages from that to sort of whet your appetite. Share the link. I would say it is a mandatory, compulsory, complementary reading to this chapter, The Human Disciple. Without that, you will not be able to understand in better detail and richness why Arjuna, being such a great hero and everything, fell into such a state. I was, before the class in the daytime, I was reading that. It is longish. It will take some time, maybe around 1 hour, 1.5 hours, depending on the reading speed. But I'm saying it again, it is absolutely necessary reading. We are not reading it here because, we are already covering the essays on the Gita. All right. So this point had to be made. Okay. Or morally, the elementary sense of sin and hell and rejection of blood-stained enjoyments. Bhunjiya bhogan rudhira pradigdhan. This is the phrase I think in the second chapter of the Gita. Yeah. Okay. Blood-stained enjoyments. Now, the fifth, practically, the sense that the standards of action have led to a result which destroys the practical aims of action. Okay. Yeah. So basically he's going, if you want to see, in a graded way, firstly with the sensational, that is the physical part, physical and vital come mixture, then the emotional, then the vital, the desire and ambition and all that. Then he's covering the emotional one level higher. Then he's talking about the moral, that is the mental being. So that is the way, as Dhaval Bhai said, he's structured this particular sentence, right? And then obviously the whole thing, practical uska, what is the use of all this? If I am going to kill them, then bachega kaun, and everything will be destroyed. What is the purpose of following such a dharma which will destroy everything for which dharma is followed in the first place, right? So, yeah, but upshot means outcome. But the whole upshot is that all embracing inner bankruptcy. Upshot means outcome. Inner bankruptcy, which Arjuna expresses when he says that his whole conscious being. Okay. So for this, the phrase in the Gita is, the verse rather is 2.7. And the relevant phrase, first, let me just read the English, which he says that his whole conscious being, not the thought alone, but heart and vital desires and all, are utterly bewildered and can find nowhere the dharma, nowhere any valid law of action. So this is 2.7, and the two words that we are looking for are one word actually, dharma
Sammudha.
sammudha cheta. Dharma sammudha cheta. Acha, pay attention here, okay? It's not just like that. So just one word is there in the Sanskrit, cheta, chetas, okay? Consciousness. Shri Aurobindo, what he's saying here? His whole conscious being. That is how he's taking the word cheta from the shloka. His whole conscious being. Not the thought alone, but the heart and vital desires and all. Now again, without this book, if we just read Dharma Sammudha Cheta, my consciousness is bewildered, like that we'll think. But the greater and deeper significance or the deeper connotations and meaning that comes when we read like this, the whole conscious being, not the thought alone, but heart and vital desires and all. Okay. So this, that is why, again, the richness of Sri Aurobindo's writings are utterly bewildered as to dharma. So dharma ke bare mein, utterly ke liye, what is the word there? Some. Some means total. Sammudha. Mudha means deluded. Sammudha would mean totally deluded. So utterly bewildered. Dharma sammudha cheta. My whole conscious being is deluded as to the meaning of dharma. All right. So, yeah. For this alone, he takes refuge as a disciple with Krishna. Those verses Sri Aurobindo has translated. So I'll wait till that English part comes to say the relevant Sanskrit. It's very beautiful, and it's like a prayer which we can do to the divine every day also. For this alone, he takes refuge as a disciple with Krishna. Give me, he practically asks, that which I have lost, a true law. He is just asking for a law of action, okay? A true law, a clear rule of action, a path by which I can again confidently walk. Now you can imagine dharma as the walking staff. जो सन्यासी जैसे होते हैं ना, Swami Vivekananda, some of his photos, Parivrajaka wala. So that walking staff. So dharma is that, by holding on to which we walk. This image can be helpful in understanding what dharma really means. Okay. A path by which I can again confidently walk. He does not ask for the secret of life or of the world. He's not a thinker, again and again we should remember this. He's a man, he's a practical man, he's a man of action, he's a warrior, and he has been accustomed to this kind of enjoyments in life which come as a prince. He's seen the other side of life also. Even though he is a prince, he has lived for so many years in the forest and all that, but basically he is not the thinker type. And it's very important for the whole insistence of the Gita on action. That is why this man of action, this practical man, has been chosen as the recipient of the Gita, so that most important point, how to bring the divine into our actions. And why should we do that? Again, because without bringing the divine into our actions, the world cannot change. Through sannyasa, we can get our own mukti by rejecting action. Nothing can come in the way of that, except the inner enemies. But once you have conquered them, you are free. But the world is left to its fate. The world is not transformed. As Sri Aurobindo wrote to Mother when she was in Japan, heaven we have conquered, but not the earth. And our aim, as in the language of the Veda, is to make heaven and earth equal and one. That is the aim of the integral yoga. To make heaven and earth equal and one, to transform this earth into heaven. That cannot be done without divine actions. All right. So, yeah, he does not ask for the secret of life over the world, the meaning and purpose of the world, but for a dharma. Okay. So around 25 minutes, we have read the first paragraph. Anybody has to say anything? Any question or any comment or anything?
No, this is where that shloka is there, no? That you were about to tell.
वो आएगा
Shishyasteham.
आएगा. Yes, yes,
Yeah, it is not yet come. Acha, acha,
it
acha,
will
acha.
come in the next paragraph.
Okay, okay, okay.
और वो quotations में होगा, so that will be the appropriate time to read that Sanskrit.
So
Makes
here in the couple of places, he's mentioning elemental feeling, elemental.
Because very
So
basic.
he's
Elementary
using.
से मतलब
So
है
it's
very
just
basic.
basic feeling is what he means. That's it,
Yeah.
right?
Basic
Nothing.
माने एकदम physical level पे. See,
Okay.
anybody इसका he will feel that pity and that जो और दो words थे ना वहाँ पे
Okay.
elementary के
Hmm.
वहाँ पे. That is something
Disgust.
very very basic.
Yeah.
Horror, pity and disgust. Anybody would feel. You do not need to be super developed to feel that. Basic.
Okay. Okay.
Morality is something not everybody will feel. As I said last time, because there is a lack of swadhyaya, shastra reading nahi hai, people may pretend but they do not even have the basic moral ideas in their mind. Yes, they do get it from the culture. I should not be so, pessimistic or negative. The Indian culture is so rich that somehow or the other we get these things in our. But the necessity of reading a book like the Gita, many people, they get the Gita read when somebody passes away in the house. The Gita is not for that. The Gita is for living your life, So that thing from Aparna to everyone. People become callous due to some crude quality of exposure. Arpan, not Arpan. Okay, okay. Okay, Aparna कौन आ गया? Okay, so we'll read the next one. Next paragraph. Who would like to read? Arpan, would you like to read? You have joined after a long time.
Yeah, sure.
Please do.
This one, yet it is precisely.
Precisely. Yes, yes.
So I'm reading from your screen only.
Yes, please.
Yet it is precisely the secret for which he does not ask, or at least so much of the knowledge as is necessary to lead him into a higher life, to which the divine teacher intends to lead this disciple. For he means him to give up all dharmas except the one broad and vast rule of living consciously in the divine and acting from that consciousness. Therefore, after testing the completeness of his revolt from the ordinary standards of conduct, he proceeds to tell him much that has to do with the state of the soul, but nothing of any outward rule of action. He must be equal in soul, abandon the desire of the fruits of work, rise above his intellectual notions of sin and virtue, live and act in yoga with a mind in samadhi, firmly fixed, that is, to say, in the divine alone. Arjun is not satisfied. He wishes to know how the change to this state will affect the outward action of the man, what result it will have on his speech, his movements, his state, what difference it will make in this acting living human being. Krishna persists merely in enlarging upon the ideas he has already brought forward on the soul state behind the action, not on the action itself. It is the fixed anchoring of the intelligence in a state of desireless equality that is the one thing needed. Arjuna brings out impatiently, for here no rule of conduct such as he sought, but rather, as it seems to him, the negation of all action. If thou holdest the intelligence to be greater than action, why then dost thou appoint me to an action terrible in its nature? Thou bewilderest my understanding with a mingled word. Speak one thing decisively by which I can attain to what is the best. It is always the pragmatic man who has no value for metaphysical thought or for the inner life except when they help him to his one demand, a dharma, a law of life in the world, or if need be, of leaving the world, for that too is a decisive action which he can understand. But to live and act in the world, yet to be above it, this is a mingled and confusing word, the sense of which he has no patience to grasp.
Yes.
Superb, superb. This is just like a drama going on. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I stand corrected. I'm sorry. That verse is not come again in the quotes or anything. So might as well the 2.7 where basically Arjuna surrenders to somebody's mic is on. Can you please off it? Some noise is coming. Yeah. So 2.7 worth noting down and memorizing, I would say, to sort of, if needed, if it helps you, to each his own, as I said last time, the golden rule of yoga, to each his own. can be used even as a prayer to the divine daily, that I surrender to you as a disciple, O world teacher, Jagat Guru, please enlighten me. Right? So, Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha pritchami tvam dharma sammudha cheta यच्छ्रेयस्याम निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेहम शाधिमाम त्वाम प्रपन्नम. All right. The meaning of this is, because Harshji likes to have the Karpanya dosho. Karpanya means pity, right? That elemental value. So he's recognizing that this is a dosha. Okay? But Karpanya in the larger sense here means by narrowness of spirit. Kripan means stingy, conjuice. So Kripan here means by some kind narrowness of spirit has come into him. Some kind of क्या कहना चाहिए, contraction in his spirit, like that. So Karpanya dosho upahata svabhavah. My normal nature, उसका अपहरण हो गया. Apahata, sorry, not upahata. This is the problem with the sandhina. Sometimes one get confused. So Karpanya dosha apahata svabhavah, like that. Prichhami tvam, I am asking you. Okay, Prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. My whole conscious being, including my mind and heart and vital, etc., is utterly bewildered as to what is dharma. क्या करूं, मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. Okay, यच्छ्रेयस्यान निश्चितम ब्रूहि तन्मे. What is good for me, मेरे श्रेयस के लिए जो है, यत् श्रेयस स्यात् निश्चितम, that you tell me definitively. And which is why, कि third chapter के में he is like, what the hell, I said you tell me definitively and you have confused me. Because he is saying clearly, tell me definitively. Nishchitam bruhi. Bruhi means to tell. Tanme, tell me. That you tell me. Tan is basically tat. Sandhi mein tan ho gaya tan mein. Shishyasteham. Shishyah te aham. I am your shishya. Shishyasteham. Shadhimam. Shadhi means to enlighten. Mam tvam prapannam. Prapannam means to take refuge. So once more just I'll say and then we'll continue. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha prichhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha yachreyasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Okay. Maybe we can begin all our sessions with this prayer in the beginning. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually
a good idea. I think it's a good idea.
No, it says we are students. So yeah, you
There's 12, 13 of us, and that will, to invoke Krishna's blessings as the Jagat Guru. Okay. So yet now, this is the funny part. So here the poor fellow, he has simply asked for a dharma, something to walk by. But, he gets something much more than he had asked for. Yet it is precisely this secret for which he does not ask, or at least so much of the knowledge, right? As is necessary to lead him into a higher life, to which the divine teacher intends to lead the disciple. It was Krishna's intention to give him this teaching. This is what is there in that Bengali writings on the first chapter, that Krishna, last time I had used the word Vaishnavi Maya. So Sri Aurobindo has not used the word Vaishnavi Maya. He says divine Maya. Devi Hesha Gunmayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. This comes in the 7th chapter. The Devi Maya, divine Maya. So, I don't want to go into it because that itself will require 2 classes at least. It is a subject of 1.5 hours, 2 hours, like that. But essentially what he says is, because, these things, if they are kept suppressed, all these emotions and all these things, that is not the way. Either they will come up in this life or in future lifetimes. So what needs to be done is you need to bring in the discrimination element, the enlightened buddhi element, and deal with it fully and squarely. And the practical point that Sri Aurobindo raises there is, what if this had come up to Arjuna in the middle of the war? ये तो शुरू में आ गया तो अच्छी बात है, अगर बाद में आ जाता तब क्या होता? It would have led to a disaster. And because, Sri Krishna and Arjuna was also the best of friends, we need to keep all these things in perspective. He knew him very well. So he knew that this kind of thing may happen to him later on. Therefore, and he says actually, again, that it is the Krishna within Arjuna's heart, Ishvaraha Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Tishtati, who deliberately put that divine Maya on Arjuna, the great fighter, and he fell into this state, and then the whole enlightenment was given. All right. So this is the basically I've filled in the gap, but I'm saying it again. Please read it. It's almost like a compulsory complementary reading for understanding the meaning of the first chapter of the Gita. All right. So
I think I think this Arjun's insistence on a positive ideal is very symptomatic of a practical man, and religions which fall for this or primarily give you a positive ideal tend to become very rigid and orthodox, like Christianity and Islam.
yes.
They have a very
In fact, वहां पे वो तीन examples देंगे, but Christianity, Buddhism, and Vaishnavism. Shri Aurobindo says they would have applauded. Oh wow, he's such a great saint. He does not want to fight. He's a peace
no.
lover.
I'm saying something completely different.
आप कुछ और कह रहे
That's a
थे?
different point.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
saying that Arjun's in this, I'm talking about the para that we just read. So
Okay.
in this, Arjun wants a concrete path, while Krishna is just
Yes.
talking about the soul state behind mind, the action of mind and body. But he
Yes.
keeps on insisting there, but Shri Krishna barely gives him any hint outwardly. I think
Yes.
as you go down the scale of wisdom, and probably not even, I mean, it looks derogatory when I say it like this, but it's necessarily not derogatory in all ways, because sometimes the way of the heart is more concrete, but it's not, so it's not lower. But when you move away from the path of wisdom, the more concrete you become, and religions which are farthest from wisdom tend to satisfy the practical man the most. They are Christianity and Islam. They have a very hard core codified view, and law about everything as to how to conceptualize God, how to marry, and everything is extremely rigid there. So as you
Yeah.
move away from the negative, from the soul behind things, and into the practical nature of action and thought, you are susceptible to becoming more orthodox,
Yeah.
because now a teacher on high has told you why to do something and why not to do something, how to do something. And
Exactly.
Krishna to avoid this, and Buddha is on the other extreme. He completely avoids it. I mean, even in Mother's translation of Dhammapad, I think Mother probably had herself read a translation, because when she talks about Maitri, she talks about love in a translation. But when you read the original Buddhist scripture, it's not love, it's aware, it's aware, not hatred.
निर्वैर
Because
गीता में भी आता है.
हाँ, अवेयर इसलिए है क्योंकि अगर आप लव कहेंगे तो लव का लोगों के माइंड में रिजिड डेफिनेशन है. व्हेन आई से दैट यू शुड लव एवरीवन, प्रोबब्ली मिलिट्री
अच्छा,
कंपैशन.
we need to slightly थोड़ा सा, I know,
So
है ना?
I'll just end it. So probably
Yeah, yes.
compassionate military action wouldn't come to your mind. But when I
Hmm.
say you should not hate, then it opens up the ambit to actual heartfelt love as well as compassionate military action. Everything apart from actually hating someone.
Correct.
It's a very broad term. This is
Like-
what Krishna is trying to approach here.
Like
While
when Mahakali slays, so no, she slays with compassion. Why compassion? To be understood, because the soul or the entity which she is slaying right now, it is stuck in a very bad mold. वो एक पाप के उसमें फंसा हुआ है, और
Yes.
वहां से उसको स्ले करके वो उसको लिबरेट कर रही है. That
Yeah.
is why the action is it's a slaying with compassion. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who में भी एक लाइन आती है, the poem of Sri Aurobindo, he slays without stint and is full of compassion. Exactly. Chalo. Very nice. So yes, yet it is precisely this secret for which he does not ask, or at least so much of the knowledge as is necessary to lead him into a higher life, to which the divine teacher intends to lead this disciple. Sorry. For he means him to give up all dharmas except the one broad and vast rule of living consciously in the divine and acting from that consciousness. I mean, what to say after this? Living
Yeah, this is
consciously in the divine.
one solution
Acting
for
from
all
that
problems. Once
Sorry?
Sri Aurobindo has now with this sentence given one solution for all ills and problems.
Exactly. Sarvadharman Parityajya, he's referring to the Mahavakta
Yes,
of the Gita,
yes.
18.66. But
But the
the
plight is
vast rule
poor
of living
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
consciously in the divine and acting from that consciousness. Therefore, now see, after testing the completeness of his revolt, whether the revolt is actually genuine or not. So after testing the completeness of the revolt, and he does not say anything unless he is asked. जब तक उसने surrender नहीं किया है, Krishna does not, start enlightening him. So there is some maryada in that. Okay. So therefore, after testing the completeness of his revolt from the ordinary standards of conduct, he proceeds to tell him much that has to do with the state of the soul, but nothing of any outward rule of action. Okay. Outward rule of action के लिए in the 18th chapter rule नहीं है, hints are there. Okay, what is the karma of the Brahmana? What is the karma of the Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra? That comes to my mind right now. But other than that, Gita is mostly dealing with the first part, with the state of the soul. He must be equal in soul. Okay, the word samata. So when I read this, I thought that let me see how many verses are there in the Gita or which of them are there in which samata is mentioned. Maybe I can samatvam yoga uchyate is obviously it equates samata with yoga, 2.48. But I found out that there are around 19 verses, actually 19 verses in the Gita which tell about this samatha. And the next word which is there here. Now, abandon the desire of the fruits of the work. For this, there are 18 verses on Phalatyag. 18 verses. I'm going to share the list of those verses on the group. Oh, URL nahi dalunga. I'll just say the verse number. You can look them up. I would say look them up on the bhagavadgita.org.in because Anil Baran's translations are the most reliable. If you read somewhere else, then again, sometimes it is Mayavadi,
Anmol,
sometimes something else. Yes, Yogesh ji?
yeah, this part that you read just now, isn't it contrary to the previous line? See, there he says that there is got to be, he doesn't give you a clear path of how do you engage. But here in the next line itself, if you think about it, if you can do this, isn't this the way which a person of action can engage?
No, but again, it's because probably you've been studying these things for some time. That's why you're seeing it like this. See, he's just asking him, tell me what to do. And he's not telling him that. He's saying be equal in soul. Now, obviously, since some development has happened in you, that is why you are able to see that if I am able to be equal in action, then everything will be the way. But that is not the state of Arjuna.
Okay, what about abandon
not
the
on that
desire?
level yet. Yeah.
So you're saying even abandon the desire is not. So, okay, let me just put the question in this manner. So is it then being said that to abandon the desire, so you can do the fruit?
Abandoning the desire,
abandoning the desire
is an inner thing. It is not an outer thing.
Correct. I get your point.
You abandon
Right.
the work itself, that is an outer thing. ये करना ही नहीं है. But
Right,
abandoning the desire, you try to do it. कर्म
You're right.
फल त्यागा करके देखिए 18 verses जो गीता के हैं उनको पढ़िए. I'll share them and each of them is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We are probably better abstract thinkers than most of the ancient elites. Arpan is right, obviously. More that abstract thinking has happened. Yes, Dhaval bhai, I will come to you. Let me just finish this sentence.
Sure.
Okay. So he must be equal in soul. Abandon the desire of the fruits of work. Okay. Here I am just, या मैं वो बाद में group में डाल दूंगा because otherwise the flow breaks. Rise above his intellectual notions of sin and virtue. So in the Gita at one place it comes, Nadatte kasyachit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhuhu. The vibhu, the divine basically, vibhu ka halanki there is a proper meaning. Prabhu and vibhu like this, they have the Sanskrit meaning. I'll find out and share. So, but he is not affected, he does not enjoy or gets involved either in the sukritam or the papam. I'll share this verse. Nadatte kasyachit papam nachaiva sukritam vibhu. This is the condition of the divine consciousness. All right. Live and act in yoga with a mind in samadhi. This is 2.53. Okay. Mind in samadhi. In samadhi ke liye the word in Gita is samadhau or samadhav achala buddhi. Samadhau achala buddhi. When you are in samadhi, samadhau achala buddhi, and your buddhi is fixed. Okay. Firmly fixed, that is to say, in the divine alone. Just क्योंकि थोड़ा सा back and forth हुआ, I'll just read this important sentence again. He must be equal in soul, abandon the desire of the fruits of work, rise above his intellectual notions of sin and virtue, live and act in yoga with a mind in samadhi, firmly fixed, that is to say, in the divine alone. There is a verse here in the 4th chapter ब्रह्मार्पणम ब्रह्महवि ब्रह्माग्नौ ब्रह्मणाहुतम ब्रह्मैव तेन गंतव्यम ब्रह्म कर्म samadhina. The last part of that, very important for integral yoga. Brahma karma samadhina means samadhi in Brahman action. Not the kind of samadhi, of course, that samadhi can be very useful in developing the inner consciousness and deepening your, inner being basically and reaching those higher states of consciousness. But the aim of the integral yoga, just this last line, okay? No, one of the aims in active life, Brahma karma samadhina, samadhi in Brahman action. So action itself is seen as Brahman. Action is seen as divine, and that is the kind of samadhi which we desire. Because that is samadhi. Once you are living in the divine and you are thinking that action itself is the divine, that is the kind of Jagrat samadhi, constant samadhi, for which you don't need to sit with eyes closed for days on end and all that. That is the integral way, basically. Ha, Dhavalji had a question or you wanted to say something. 2051. Dhaval bhai?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. So what I was saying is, the way I understood this whole paragraph is, I asked for this and you're giving me all this. I don't understand all this. Is what I am. And so he's getting an orthogonal, not orthogonal answer, but he's not at that level. Which,
yes,
which
exactly.
Sri Krishna wants him to be.
Exactly.
So,
and yes.
So
Sri Aurobindo will cover in this chapter itself all the other questions of Arjuna that are there in the whole book.
Yeah, okay.
From that also you get the idea that he is just interested in practical matters.
Correct.
Give me some, some solid proof, or how am I to see you, how am I to perceive you, all those things. So he's not of that level of intellectual refinement.
Correct,
he's
correct.
Not a stage kind of person.
Right.
Let's not be confused.
So that I remember the principle, from near to far. Sri Aurobindo's principle, near to far. And he's giving, Sri Krishna is giving far answer, whereas this guy is near.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think Sri Aurobindo,
Krishna is giving him the knowledge that will be, मतलब वो बोलते ना, root cause analysis करके, तो the deepest roots of the problem of action, they will be solved, and therefore there will be no need for further enlightenment. And yes, Arpan, something you were saying?
Yeah, I think Sri Aurobindo had a theory that Gita may not have been, been an actual historical event narration of the Gita, but even if it was written by Yogi and later added to the Mahabharata, it was still written by someone at a high level of consciousness.
Yes, we have shared that quotation earlier.
Yeah, I think this holds more weight because it starts off as a colloquy on a battlefield, but I don't think somebody would have a 700 versus conversation.
Yeah, we have covered this point, yes.
Yeah, so I think the conversation why he's exceeding what Arjuna want to say is because that was just a shell, and now Krishna's actual message is there. It doesn't matter at what level Arjuna is actually.
Yeah, correct.
Anmol,
correct.
This line, abandon the desire of the fruits of work. So what this is implying is that for a practical person to achieve this is next to impossible. Because still you don't elevate, am I getting this right? Or is it possible to achieve this fact that a human being can abandon the desire of the fruits of work and yet be in a mental consciousness and not evolve to a spiritual level?
That's what I'm trying to say. Even as early as verse number 27 of the 3rd chapter, okay? The Gita says, Ahankara vimudhatma karta hamiti manyate. Deluded by egoism, man thinks that he is the doer. So if you are not the doer, then where is the question of the fruit of the work?
Right.
So, those steps of karma yoga. So when you reach that second step, you realize that you are not the doer itself. Right. And as to this problem, ki kaise, obviously it's a problem. If I am doing something, how will I not aspire for the fruits of it? But then you do something because that is the right thing to be done. If you are a student, you study because you should gain knowledge. Okay. And if you are a Kshatriya, if that is your dharma, then it is your duty to maintain normalcy and to maintain law and justice. And you forget about victory or defeat. You do what is supposed to be done by you, what is expected from you. जिसको गीता में बोलते हैं कर्तव्यम कर्म. मेरा क्या कर्तव्य है? As far as I am doing what is my kartavya, according to my highest, of course, Arjuna's highest right now is very low, which is what Krishna raises. but basically in the light of the divine consciousness. What is my kartavya? If I'm doing that, then I should not be concerned with the fruits of my action. I mean, this is one way to begin.
Right. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, welcome. So Arjuna is not satisfied. He wishes to know how the change to this state will affect the outward action of the man, what result it will have on his speech, his movements, his state, what difference it will make in this acting, living human being. So for this, there is a verse in the Gita, जहां से श्री अरविंदो ये बोल रहे हैं, that is 2.54. Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha. How does a man of stable wisdom speak? Okay. Samadhisthasya Keshava. Somebody who is in Samadhi, O Keshava. Sthitadhihi. Kim prabhasheta. Kimasita vrajeta kim. Right? Yeah. What will have results on his speech, his movements, his state, etc. I think prabhasheta would probably mean movement here. Kimasita means how does he sit? Each and every word I don't know, I'm sorry. So I move on. Krishna persists merely in enlarging upon the ideas he has already brought forward on the soul state behind the action. Now, in your mind map, for those who know the Gita, put your marker right now at 2.54 and then move from there. Then it will be easier for you to follow the essays on the Gita text also. Krishna persists merely in enlarging upon the ideas he has already brought forward on the soul state behind the action, not on the action itself. Because there is no, he does not reply. Jo Arjun ne pucha, he does not reply. He does not tell how he sits, how he moves, how he speaks, nothing. He just tells these are the inner qualities of the Sthita Prajna. All those 4-5 verses initially, and then the rest till the end of the chapter. That just tells you basically the inner qualities of a yogi. Nothing of the outward is covered in that part. Okay. It is the fixed anchoring of the intelligence in a state of desireless equality. That is the one thing needed. Very important sentence, so I'm reading it again. It is the fixed anchoring of the intelligence in a state of desireless equality. That is the one thing needed. Okay. Arjuna breaks out impatiently. For here is no rule of conduct such as he sought, but rather, as it seems to him, the negation of all action. For example, उसमें जो वर्ष आता है ना, कूर्मोंगानी व सर्वशः इंद्रियाणि इंद्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. So if I withdraw all my limbs like that, then where is the possibility of action, right? So what does Arjuna say? If thou holdest the intelligence to be greater than action, why then doest thou appoint me to an action terrible in its nature? Thou bewilderest my understanding with a mingled world. Speak one thing decisively by which I can attain to what is the best. Again, what is the best for me? Shreyas. This is verse number 1 and 2 of the 3rd chapter. Jayas Arjuna Uvacha. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava vyamishrene vavakyena buddhim mohayasi vame. Mohayasi iva. Iva means as if. Mohayasi mane मोहित कर रहे हो, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है. ठीक है, as if. मोहयसी वमे तद एकम वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयो हम आपनुयाम. Apnuyam means to attain. Tell me that one thing decisively, ekam vad nishchityam, by which I will attain what is best for me. All right. It is always the pragmatic man who has no value for metaphysical thought. So, there might be people who are लाइट डिवाइन वगैरह पढ़ने से या गीता के फिलोसफी वगैरह पढ़ने से क्या होगा. नहीं. I'll share synthesis में एक है sentence, I don't remember it right now. It gives a great stability to the intellect. Reading metaphysics, reading philosophy is essential for the overall maturity of the mental being, right? So it is always the pragmatic man who has no value for metaphysical thought or for the inner life, except when they help him to his one demand, adharma. How to move forward, what to do, a law of life in the world, or if need be, of leaving the world. Even that is fine. For that too is a decisive action which he can understand. But to live and act in the world, yet be above it, this is a mingled. Mingled ke liye the word here is vyamishrena. Mishrit, mixed. Vyamishrena. Third chapter, 3.2, basically. This is a mingled and confusing word, the sense of which he has no patience to grasp. So it's 9.1. We had started at 8.5. There are 1, 2, 3 paragraphs remaining in this chapter. We can finish that on Friday, surely.
Wonderful.
We cannot read the next paragraph before, unless we extend the session, which I am not sure how many people are
Anmol,
in. Yes.
Anmol, the line which is really powerful, which
Yes.
defines it, he
Yes.
says, it's
Yes.
where we started saying, except the one broad and vast rule of living consciously in the divine and acting from that consciousness. That implies.
Exactly.
So this acting, because the action still needs to be done, this implies that the divine consciousness will then guide you. That means there will be some intuitive communication. See, if you're completely in that oneness, there isn't a personal aspect to it. So then this action, the direction or the guidance, how's it coming? It's coming intuitively. I'm asking you.
Yes, it's coming from within. You become more and more an instrument of the divine Shakti. And gradually, even that instrumentality starts fading away into the union with the Shakti. Remember, wo Mother ka 5th chapter kiya tha, where the stages of that union in Karma Yoga were, I mean, spelt out and read so powerfully. I mean, Mother ke liye to kya hi bole. So
yeah, but Anmol, see, when you go into, for all the people who have been practicing meditation, as you get into a meditative stage, it's it's like a expansion.
that is
You don't
because
feel-
of the, actually it comes from Shankaracharya's dominance in the Indian mindset and the excessive importance given to dhyana and jnana and meditation and all that in the mind of the Indian spiritual seeker. Many people still feel or think that the aim of life is to sit in meditation and attain samadhi, and that's it. Because there has been a very long period, more than 2000 years, since the Buddhistic interlude, as Sri Aurobindo calls it, wherein this tendency became very, very strong. So the balancing needs to happen through the practice of Karma Yoga. And the Gita's yoga, it's not that you are not given any knowledge. It is the complete yoga in that sense that all the major parts of your being, your will, your intelligence, as well as your heart and emotions, they are given full satisfaction, and that can happen only when they are united with the divine. So, that sort of thing. I think, I hope I'm addressing what you had in your mind.
My only question was, Anmol, the guidance. See, when you're connecting with the divine within and you're acting out of it, which is the line here, it says the divine and acting from that consciousness.
So
that means the guidance.
Can I help? Can I help here? I think.
Let him just finish his question.
Yeah.
So my point was that this aspect of acting from that consciousness is, I'm asking you, does that imply that the guidance of what the action should be will come to you intuitively? Your inner voice will tell you what should be done.
Exactly.
If you're always
Exactly.
Fair.
Exactly. Dhaval bhai, you wanted to say something?
The example that I could think of is in Uttarpara speech. Sri Aurobindo says, "I waited for the command," and that is what that command, or if you
he says, I waited a day and a 2 and a 3rd. So he waited for 3 full days before he got the indication from within why he has been arrested.
So that, in my view, was an example which I like to share for Yogesh bhai.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yogesh bhai, you are familiar with the Uttarpara speech? You have read it?
Yeah. You had shared it on our first or second session. Yeah, I read it.
Okay. So 9:05, approximately 1 hour, we have been together.
Sorry, I missed the point. I think Parjanya ji Raise
The
that
point he was saying was that,
It's
let
our-
me
I probably
let me
missed
say
something.
directly by
I probably missed something that Yogesh had asked. That's why I could not understand the context for this. But it seems interesting. So can you please repeat, fitting it into that context? Yeah.
Dhavalji.
No, the example that I gave Arpanji was when Yogeshji asked about this particular sentence, acting from that consciousness. So I could only think of one example from Uttarpara's speech,
Okay.
which Sri Aurobindo says, I waited for the command. So that is what the context was. I mean, the answer, the example was that I cited. Yeah.
Arpan, this line which is there, which gives the way forward, what needs to be done, he says, except the one.
Anybody
the
else
one
also has anything to share or any? Oh, one person has left. Who is it? Okay, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Yogesh was saying something.
Yeah. I was saying,
बोलिए.
except the one broad and vast rule of living consciously in the divine and acting from that consciousness. So I was asking Anmol that acting from that consciousness means that there has to be an intuitive voice all the time, step by step, guiding you throughout your engagement in action. And how would that be? It's an intuitive thing, but you have to experience that, right? I mean, you have to be in that state and act from that is what is the guidance which is being given here. So I was asking you to.
Yeah, I think the practical point here is to always act from your highest, because I mean, obviously you can't force these things into your life. So whatever you can, whatever is highest for you right now, as Sri Aurobindo says, always act from the summit of your consciousness, whatever your summit is currently.
Okay, thanks.
That summit, I mean, there is no special point at which things become divine. It's a continuum, right? So you just keep on rising higher. You practice being at your highest while speaking, acting, and thinking.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That's practical. Thanks.
Okay. So shall we close with half a minute of silence?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll just be silent for half a minute.